Now just imagine the zombie apocalypse just occurred, you're starving, you can't go to the store, you're likely to get eaten, especially by those fast-running zombies. So what do? Well, make yourself a loaf of bread. And you've always wanted to make that loaf of bread with a soft, golden, chewy crust.
The secret is to use a Romertopf clay baker.
I'm going to make a 1.5 pound white wheat loaf. And, unlike some British chefs, I'm not going to be taking my shirt off or swearing during this video. We need 1 cup of water. You need it to be fairly hot so the dough will rise. 1.5 tablespoons of oil. 3 tablespoons of sugar. 1.5 teaspoons of salt. 1.5 tablespoons of dried milk. 2 2/3 cups of bread flour. I'm using King Arthur brand bread flour. 1/3 cup of whole wheat flour. 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. In this case we're using fast raised yeast from a local store. So now we have all the ingredients in the bowl. What we're going to do is we're going to mix it up, and basically what we're going to make is a big lump of dough. Okay, so now I'm going to turn on the mixer. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually trying to make sure that we get all the flour off the bottom of the mixer into the ball of dough. Sometimes it just needs a little help. It depends on your mixer. Sometimes the mixer you got, you can just kind of just turn it on and let it do its thing. This particular mixer, it just needs a little help here. Another thing you might watch out for is if the dough seems a little dry and it's not picking up all the flour, you can just like add a little touch of water. Don't add too much because you don't want it to turn into a wet, sticky mess. So now I get my dough ball. It helps to have some flour on your hands when you do this. It should be a little sticky, not too sticky. If it is a little sticky, don't worry about it. What you can often do is once you put it on here, you can just roll it in some flour, and that will help you out a bit. So basically what we're going to do now is I'm just going to shape the dough. I like to get it into a kind of a dome shape. I don't think there's any special technique to this, but if you end up with a nice round ball like this is good. Drop it down on there. Now we just cover it to allow the bread to rise. So what I'm going to do is I usually use a timer just to remind myself, because I'm going to go off and do some other things. Typically for the first rise, I'm going to go 40 minutes. Start. Okay, so now we've completed the first rise. What we're going to do now is our second rise. So uncover the dough. Flour on the hands. Now we're just going to punch this down. There's no real technique to this. It's just a matter of just pushing it down. And then we remake it. Like I always like to do is make it into a little dome or a little ball. And cover it. This time we're going to cover it for about 35 minutes. If the dough feels cold and isn't rising, what I usually do is I place it on a hot bowl of water. Sometimes this happens when the room is cold, or I forgot to use hot water when mixing the ingredients. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set it up for the third and final rise. Okay, so now I'm just gonna set the timer for the last rise. And this time we'll go for about 40 minutes. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put the Romertopf in the oven. We need to do this before we turn on the oven. We don't want to put the clay baker in the oven once the oven is already hot. Now we're going to set the oven for 475 degrees. Take the Romertopf out of the oven. Put the dough into the clay baker. Take a knife, cut 3 slices across the top. What this does, it helps the bread expand. Sprinkle a little flour on it so when it comes out it looks nice. Put the lid on the clay baker. Open the oven. Set the timer for 20 minutes. Let's take it out of the oven. We'll take a look at it first to make sure it's baked enough. Take the lid off for a second. Yep, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to take it out. If you need to, what we do sometimes is put this back in the oven without the lid on. If it needs a little more browning, and give it another minute or 2. So what we'll do now is we're going to take it out of the clay baker. I'm going to let the loaf cool for about 20 or 30 minutes. A little bit of butter on it. That's great. One other thing you can do is just to keep your bread nice and fresh, get yourself a sealed container. You just pop the bread in there. Even after you cut it, it'll keep it sealed nice and fresh for days. So that's it. Now you're ready to bake that loaf of bread next time there is a zombie apocalypse, or any other kind of apocalypse.